Well, hello and welcome to episode 2 of Match It and the Other Guy, the podcast that I'm sure will take shape the more episodes we do. We're sitting down at Lake Wylie outside my house in Charlotte. And the other guy is Kevin, of course, who's right here. Say hi, Kevin.
Hello.
And I can tell you now, there is hardly any light down here. It's, what is it, nearly 7 o'clock at night now? Something like that?
I think it's past.
About 7 o'clock. It's beautifully tranquil down here. And all the sounds you hear are all perfectly natural sounds coming from the lake. We have no audio soundtrack other than us sitting here getting colder and colder outside the house. All right, episode 2, Kevin. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, something I noticed, over by your TV, you've got a box set of the original Batman on your watch list.
Yes.
The Adam West, Burt Ward,
yes.
Famous Batman set.
Yes. Yes, big fan of Batman. Big fan of Batman in all of its forms, actually, but most particularly those original 1960s Batman shows. They were just fantastic.
That made me think, what kind of shows did you have as a kid from the U.S.? When did those start coming over, and what were your shows as a child?
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those Batman shows were 65, 66, 67, something there. 66,
You're right in there.
67?
I think they started maybe in 66.
Yeah. So we definitely used to have that. And, pretty much the same time as they would have been released. I mean, I would have been...
There wasn't like a few month delay?
Well, maybe there's a few months, but it wasn't years. I don't think it was years. It was certainly around the same time, definitely. But Batman, if memory serves, it would have been on I want to say it was Saturday lunchtime. Lunchtime about 12 o'clock, midday. We'd watch
Well, it was
Batman.
Probably, if it was shown that way, it's probably like in the syndication times, because I think that one was originally shown probably in prime time when it was first aired in the U.S., like probably an 8 o'clock show or something like that.
Oh, is that right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think it was made to be particularly a kids show during kids' hours.
Well, I actually, funny enough, I was reading something about those Batman shows, probably a result of buying the box set that you saw earlier on. That the original intention for those shows would be an hour-long show.
Oh, really?
So I read. I mean, it'd be worth researching this. Yes, and for whatever reason, the decision was made that they would be 2 30-minute shows. Hence the introduction of the same bat time, same bat channel. Come back again tomorrow and see what happens as the conclusion of the episode. Yeah, I think that was right.
Yeah, that may be the case actually.
Yeah. So definitely Batman. And the original Star Trek episodes, of course, all those.
Yeah.
And
which were definitely a primetime show.
Yeah. And did you like Star Trek? Are you a Star Trek fan?
I didn't really pick up on it as much. I mean, I don't think it was in reruns where I lived or something in regular rotation or something like that. I just didn't. It just never clicked.
Didn't do it for you.
I just think it wasn't around, and the kids weren't playing with those. We didn't have those toys as much, and but I remember Batman specifically was always in the afternoons.
Okay.
On about somewhere between your 3 and 5 o'clock. Your hours before dinner. One vivid memory was the summertime. We'd go swimming at the pool and come back, and I'd still be, a little chilly in the air conditioning from being at the pool and the towel, and I'd sit down on the floor and watch the old vintage Batmans.
Yes. And you're a big collector. Well, you're a big collector of most things, quite frankly, but you're a big collector of toys and that sort of stuff. So did you have Batman toys? Did you have the Batmobile?
I did. I did as much. It's not as much as being a collector as that I just held on to all that stuff, which is as the collectors go. That's the way to do it.
Yeah.
We got they were the Mego figures at that time. They were about 12 inches tall, and they had the Batmobile and had Batman and Robin. And I remember one Christmas I got the Bat Cave. It went with that set.
No kidding.
It was kind of a plastic kind of would fold down,
Wow.
but it had a bat signal you could put on the wall. You'd light up and shoot it at the wall. It'd pick the bat on the wall, and it had the.
I'm very envious. I wish I'd have backed it. I'm going to look for one now. I'll have a look on eBay, see if we can find it.
I'd say you're going to pay considerably more than they cost in the mid 70s.
Yeah,
but,
yeah. So you say the figures like Batman and Robin were 12 inches tall? were
Yeah,
they?
yeah. There's this
wow,
company.
wow,
I think Mego was who made those, and they did like a lot of the characters. They did a lot of the DC Universe characters and stuff like that. And of course, anything like that new in the box or whatever is very coveted now.
Yeah, I must say, watching these old episodes of Batman, all the nuances and the campness of the comedy was, of course, lost on us as kids. You know, we were just looking at his excitement of Batman and Robin solving crime.
It wasn't campy. It was just a show.
But now, they are just wonderful shows to watch as an adult.
Oh, yeah.
And I tell you, the thing that I still find very impressive, but we simply could not afford a colour television. Like only the very poshest kids in the village had colour TVs. We were always black
Gotcha.
and white, black and white, and very unreliable, quite frankly.
Wow.
But to see the vivid colours of Batman,
it was just a explosion.
Wow. Yeah,
and really, back in those days, today, kids really, not only you have your shows on demand, but there's cartoons on. I mean, there's channels devoted to it. There's a cartoon channel. There's, I think, Boomerang, which shows the old stuff.
Right.
But as a kid, those afternoon shows on a weekday, it wasn't hardly cartoons at all. It was mainly your live action stuff. It would be Batman and Robin, Gomer Pyle, Green Acres, Beverly Hillbillies, Andy Griffith, those type of things. So it's always just the old reruns of Brady Bunch, for instance. And you didn't get cartoons until Saturday morning.
Okay.
Saturday morning in the States in the 70s as a kid was a big deal.
That was cartoon time.
That was cartoon morning. And that was pretty much the only time you got to see cartoons, other than, if it's around the holidays, you're going to get the Rankin Bass, Rudolph. You're going to get, of course, any of the Charles Schultz, Charlie Brown specials, things like that. And those were a huge deal, too. To look forward that night is going to be one of those specials.
Yeah, well, that's interesting. Now, you've taught me something then. I often say this whenever we have a conversation, I always learn something from you, because I never gave consideration to Saturday morning being cartoon time. Now, when I think of the number of references I must have heard and folks say, it's Saturday morning, he's watching cartoons all day. It never dawned on me. I never made the connection that it was cartoon time.
I'd have to look. I'd probably have to research. I don't know how early they actually started, but 7 or 8, I would guess. And it was just amazing. And always the staple of the morning was always for decades was the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner hour.
Yes, okay.
And those were phenomenal. And through the years, it just, they started editing them, and then, certain ones they wouldn't show. And then I think it wasn't too many years ago that it aired for the last time on Saturday morning. And I said, we've really lost something.
Come to an end of an era.
When Bugs Bunny and Roadrunner aren't on Saturday mornings, something has changed.
Yeah.
But it was cartoons, but there was Scooby-Doo. There was, trying to think the other cartoons. But there was also a lot of really cool live action stuff. The Sid and Marty Krofft stuff, that was Sigmund the Sea Monster, and they have something called the Krofft Super Show, which had all these smaller stories in it. There was Bigfoot and Wild Boy was a show.
And these were shows within the show.
Within the show, it was introduced. They actually even had a made up band that would kind of be their hosts.
Oh yeah, well, like the Banana Splits almost.
Kind of in a way. They were very caricatures of themselves.
Yeah.
They were all done up in glittery stuff.
Cool. Yeah.
But Wonder Bug was one. Trying to think what the Dr. Shrinker and Electro Woman and Dyna Girl.
So
was
Dr. Shrinker. I'm just guessing here. Did Dr. Shrinker manage to make things go very small?
He'd shrunk the kids small, so everything around them was big. And this was years before Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, so they were kind of definitely ahead of the game.
Yeah.
But there was still the cartoon stuff and Speed Buggy, and you notice I'm mentioning Wonder Bug and Speed. Anything that had to do with wheels in a car,
you were all over it.
I was all over it. Yeah. So those were two of my absolute favorites as a kid.
Did you have Wacky Races? You remember that?
That was a cartoon, wasn't it?
A cartoon.
And it was the Hanna-Barbera.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Dastardly.
Yeah, Dick Dastardly and Muttley.
Muttley
was his sidekick dog.
Oh, they had so many of those in that one.
Yeah,
and a lot of the people from their universe would be in it. Snagglepuss would be in it, and stuff like that.
Okay, all right, yeah.
So, those were a lot of fun.
You set me thinking now about Batman, and the two things that I was always amazed at is how has nobody figured out that Batman and Robin, are Bruce Wayne and his ward, like it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, you're looking at that saying, how does nobody get?
Well, the bigger argument is, of course, Superman. He's like, "Where's Superman?" "Oh, I put on glasses. I'm no longer Superman." So, okay, where'd he go? So,
yeah.
But actually,
Dick Grayson was his ward. Dick Grayson. Yes, and the other thing, the wonderful scene that they've used over and over of them using the batarang and the bat rope and climbing up the side of the building.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, with the angle of the camera.
Well, and then as they go up, inevitably somebody would. Why it's Joey Bishop, or it's
pop out and have a
Martha
conversation.
Ray might pop out and say hello or something like that. In fact, I think you can look a compilation up on YouTube and just find all the celebrity window openings from that, where they would have special guests, which is kind of cool.
Very cool.
And it would cross over. That show crossed over with the Green Hornet.
Right.
Which are made by the same people. But actually, I never hardly ever saw the Green Hornet. I guess they just didn't rerun that one. So.
Yes, no, of course, we're all aware of these shows, but I can't ever remember sitting down as a kid watching the Green Hornet in the same way we used to watch Batman and Robin.
Yeah, I just think they didn't have the popularity, for one thing, I'm sure. But on Saturday mornings too, they had another set of live action ones. They had Shazam, which was Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And Billy Batson was when he wasn't Captain Marvel.
Right.
He would be, and he drove around in this Winnebago van, and in the back of it were like the elders, like the gods that would tell him, kind of what to do, or and advise him and such.
Oh wow!
Well, on the front of the motorhome, they had the symbol like he had on his chest. I'm like, what better way to be incognito than put your alter ego on the front of the motorhome?
The front of the Winnebago.
Pretty much all he wore when he wasn't Captain Marvel was a pair of jeans and an orange T-shirt. So pretty simple wardrobe, and that crossed over with Isis, which again, Isis, the term has definitely gone a different direction these days.
Right.
But she was like the Egyptian goddess, superhero from that exact same storyline. So
wonderful, yeah. I must admit, we were talking about Star Trek earlier on the first episodes, and I've been watching a few reruns of Star Trek episodes. Well, I mean, Star Trek is such an iconic series now, and of course we all dearly love it, but some of those first episodes, they were pretty rough around the edges.
Oh, I'm sure.
A lot of those storylines. I'm amazed at how many planets they used to go to and find the sort of false vision of utopia. Like every other episode seems to be, they land on a planet and think they're going to have such a great time, and they find out that it's actually very, very much a dystopia, and they're desperately trying to get off it, and some sort of cloud formation is yielding power over them, and they must try and get away from the break the power of the mysterious cloud. But a lot of those episodes are kind of corny.
Oh yeah, well, and they're campy, like again talking about Batman and stuff like that. It's just some campiness to it as well. Yeah. But
we all, on that, of course, you fall in love with just the idea that it's almost the mythology of Star Trek. It's like the mythology of Star Wars now, isn't it? You kind of fall in love with it and just want more and more of it.
Yeah. And it's in so much depth of people researching it, and those out there that are experts will forget more than we'll ever know about either of the franchises.
Yes.
But they are pretty amazing. But yeah, we had interesting shows come and go on Saturday mornings, and that was your time to see the kids stuff. And what did they have other? Do you recall from the U.S. come over other than the Batman?
In terms of cartoons and children's shows, we used to have we had things like Captain Scarlet and Thunderbirds. Which,
I barely remember the Thunderbirds as a
yes.
kid, but they did show them here at
yes,
some point.
which was puppet marionation.
Marionettes.
Marionettes was you know, so and they were really cool. You know, Thunderbirds would set out to save the world from disaster. You know, if an oil rig was on the point of explosion for whatever reason, you know, Thunderbirds would be dispatched to cure that. And Captain Scarlet was again made by the same crew, but not that many American, you know, so children's shows came over. We had a huge amount of American shows. Don't get me wrong, in England, but they were more adult shows. You name it, we had it. Columbo, Kojak, MASH, all of those shows that have, you know, now gone on to become such great classics. We had those
icons of American television.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And of course, they're still in rerun now, aren't they? Almost, you know, you put the TV on almost every night. You're going to find an episode of MASH.
Yeah,
and Star Trek, and of course now Batman. We used to have a kids show in England called Tiswas when I was growing up, and it was Today is Saturday, Watch and Smile, I think they called it.
Very good.
It was hosted by Chris Tarrant, who you may know as the host from Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and it's in the British form.
I don't know if I've seen that version. I've seen how they brought it here with Regis Philbin back 20 years ago.
So I think the first series in England had Chris Tarrant as the host, and I actually have a feeling, I may be wrong here, but I think Chris Tarrant was one of the creators of that. I believe so. But anyway, you know, it was a bit like a watch show. It was very unscripted. Tiswas. It was on ITV, not BBC. So it was on. BBC was the posh network in England, and ITV, independent television, was for everybody else, right?
This is for us. This is for us.
That's right. So Tiswas was on ITV, but it was very much a lot of clowning around. They used to throw buckets of water over each other, and you know the equipment would always break down. You're never really sure what was supposed to happen, but somehow or another they seemed to get through about 3 hours on a Saturday morning, every Saturday morning.
So it was a Saturday morning staple.
It was just absolutely.
Was there anything else around it, or just that one show then?
It was that one show, but they'd do things like, you know, it was live. They'd have a live audience in, and you know, they'd be talking to the kids, and then they'd go to if there was a sort of show anywhere in England that day, like an exhibition show, they'd have a camera out at the exhibition show.
Oh yeah,
you know, that sort of stuff.
Yeah, bring in the audience.
Lots of
like that.
You know, phone in and call in, and you could write in and ask questions, that sort of stuff.
Great. How about the Mickey Mouse Club? Did it come over? Because that goes way back.
I have a feeling it did, and I'm aware of it, but I can't say that it's a childhood memory of the Mickey Mouse Club. Yeah. Were you a member of the Mickey Mouse Club?
No, I mean, I remember seeing, again, it was the reruns back then, and they were back, the old reruns that had Annette Funicello, you know, so it went pretty far back, but I just don't think it wasn't what we were into. You got excited about, you know, the stuff like Batman, stuff that you could play and go buy the toys of and stuff like that, and the Saturday morning stuff. You know, you'd find the paraphernalia. You'd find a jigsaw puzzle from one of the Saturday morning shows or something like that, you know, that you could go buy stuff. And actually, another of the live ones that was interesting was, do you remember the Bay City Rollers?
Yeah, of course.
They had an hour-long Saturday morning TV show in the U.S.
No kidding.
Yep, the Bay City Rollers. That's my only introduction to them. And they had that one hit that we know, Saturday Night. But I remember that show. And actually, it was such a big deal for the networks and stuff like that. They would have, in the late 70s, they would have, like, but before the season started, they have like one Friday introduction special. Like, you'd watch on the Friday what shows are coming this season.
Right.
And they would give you a kind of a preview of what's going to be all the kids' shows. And that was exciting. Because, again, this was back long before cable and all that. And you watched it once. It wasn't like you're going to tape it or, you know, have a chance to just pull it up and watch it. You watched it or you didn't.
So the Bay City Rollers were really ahead of their time. How on earth did that happen? Were there any other British bands that made it over for their own show?
No.
I mean, we're going to say, of course, the Beatles, but I'm not thinking the Beatles.
The Rollers were actually Scottish.
TV show. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was Witchy Poo and Puff and Stuff created in England?
Well, I'd like to.
I think H.R. Pufnstuf was an English show. Don't don't quote me on that for sure.
All right.
But they came over and they might have done it with the Bay City Rollers.
No kidding.
Now that I think about it, that might have been on the same show. But that was the first time I ever saw Witchy Poo and Pufnstuf. But I don't remember seeing the show. And the show was back from the 60s, I think.
Yeah.
Maybe late 60s, early 70s. But, yeah, I don't remember it other than that, those characters.
Remarkable. I'd never heard that about the Bay City Rollers over the road show over in the States. So that would have been, I'm guessing, what, 72? I'm going to guess
No,
72?
This was later. This was probably past 75. So maybe 77, 78, something like that.
Yeah.
And then you didn't see it as much in the Saturday morning stuff, but once Star Wars hit, there was so many things based around space. Everybody wanted to get on board with kind of the space craze.
Yeah.
So you started seeing, it again wasn't Saturday morning at all, but it was, Battlestar Galactica was probably the best one to come out of that. And the Buck Rogers and stuff like that.
Yes, you're right. Anything to do with space was suddenly big news, wasn't it, really? But for obvious reasons.
Mm-hmm. Well, all the executives say, hey, this is selling, so that's what we're going to go with.
Yeah. There's this rule about science fiction. If you can put the word space at the front of any noun, it makes it much more exciting. Like, Space Gun, for example.
Yeah.
That's right. All of a sudden it sounds like...
how many toys did they just reissue and just put the word Space Gun, space walkie-talkies, and make a fortune?
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, my introduction to probably British shows was much later. I don't remember much as a kid. Like I said, the Pufnstuf kind of stuff I think might have carried over slightly.
Right.
But the very first British show I can distinctly remember was the Benny Hill Show.
Okay.
And I was probably about 10 when I discovered, and it actually happened when we would visit our family in Florida, and we actually ended up moving down there shortly thereafter. And it was on one of the local channels at 11 o'clock out of Orlando. And I thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever seen in my life. And too, it was a little risque, you're a young boy, these beautiful women, in bikinis and stuff like that too. And it was very tongue in cheek, as you know.
Yeah.
And that was my probably first introduction to British humor and comedy.
Yeah, so I think Benny Hill was a lot more successful in the States than ever was in. Well, I mean, yes, I think so. I think he was a great export to the United States and. Became very, very popular. It's a bit like Mr. Bean, Rowan Atkinson.
Yeah.
Rowan Atkinson's Mr. Bean character, during my years in France, everybody wanted to talk about Mr. Bean. It was a huge hit in France. Yeah,
okay.
far more popular in France than ever was in England. Yes, and I think that was... the case with a lot of shows. Of course, the ultimate has to be the export of Monty Python's Flying Circus, doesn't it?
Yeah, which was probably earlier than that, obviously. Yeah, because the movies were being made in the 70s.
Yes, well, I imagine series one of Python was probably 68, maybe?
Probably,
69?
I think they showed them occasionally, but they're kind of rare, and I don't think I caught on to them back then. And in fact, I know I didn't. I kind of wish I did now, but yeah, they occasionally would show up, and then not too long after that, and it was on MTV. Back when MTV was still MTV, they would occasionally show some good shows, but they brought the young ones,
right?
And the young ones were on at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night. I remember it vividly. Yeah. This was early high school for me, and it was a perfect show for that. And the episode I started with. And it's not episode 1, but it's Bambi, where they go play University Challenge.
Right. Yes.
It's still my favorite episode because I just think it's the best one. And the musical guest was Motorhead, and
yes,
I love that one.
Now the great gag was probably overlooked by many folks who watched the young ones, but that particular episode is University Challenge. It's great. I mean, the show ran for years in England. It probably is still running now in England. But the way that it was shot had the two teams of student contestants sitting side by side in the studio. But they did that classic split shot of putting both sets of contestants, one on top of the other, as if they were sitting on a higher level.
Okay,
but of course, they weren't really. It was a split screen.
Yeah.
That's what we're doing now. Of course, the young ones played that out beautifully by having them sitting one group above the other. Because if you remember, the sort of Vivian, I think, pushed his foot through the floor.
Yeah, he hits one of them on the yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, the young ones.
Well, on the University Challenge, you remember who the people were on the Posh team? It was Emma Thompson,
yes,
Hugh Laurie,
Stephen Fry,
yeah, and I don't think we remember the other one, but that's three major went on to major careers.
It was
after that.
Ben Elton, I think, was the other guy on the Posh team.
I never saw him again, but he might have been well known.
Yeah, well, Ben Elton was one of the writers of the young ones. But of course, he was still is a stand-up comedian.
Okay.
That went on to great success. But one of his great claims to fame was writing TV shows around the 1980s, alternative shows. But Blackadder was his great claim to fame.
Okay, was that him? Okay.
Yes, yeah.
Well, funny thing is, like the young ones and stuff, there's only 13 episodes, I think. It's a very limited. They made them and put them in the can, and we're done.
Yes, that's exactly right. They didn't want to go on and produce another series, did they? And yes, I'm trying to think if Ben Elton did have a writing credit actually now in the young ones, or he was around that alternative comedy lifestyle. So everyone that was in the young ones, they were all stand-up comedians in the alternative comedy circuit down in London. Yeah. And actually now I've said that Ben Elton had a writing credit on that. I'm not sure, but most definitely he did in Blackadder.
Well, something I discovered literally just 2 or 3 years ago. You remember when they did Do They Know It's Christmas, Band-Aid in 1984 for the Ethiopian Relief?
Yeah.
Well, I watched on YouTube one of the kind of backstage kind of making of kind of specials just around Christmas time. I love the song, and it brings back memories and all this. So I watched the special. Well, Nigel Planer, who was Neil in The Young Ones.
Right.
I never knew this, but he came to that recording. It was never on the recording of the album or the song or anything. But he was backstage as Neil during the whole time. So he played his character backstage and would like do a little guitar or something with the all these famous people that were there to record an album. I'm like, that's a treasure finding that right there. He was always my favorite young one anyway.
Neil.
Yeah, I always liked Neil the best. They were all great, but I think
Neil Orange Peel. Yes, well, a wonderful show. But all of those guys and girls from that series have gone on to much bigger and better things, and have now become national treasures.
Which over here, I mean, even that little bit of young ones, you don't see many of them have any stuff done in the States. Rick Mayall did that one movie with Phoebe Cates, Drop Dead Fred,
right?
Which was pretty much a flop.
Yes,
that's the only thing I ever remember him coming over here and trying to get into the American mainstream.
Yes, well, Rick Mayall, I mean, a bit of a hero of mine, really. Tremendous comic talent. Sadly, no longer with us.
Yeah. Out of the young ones, he was the first one to go.
Yeah. He was a partner for many years with Adrian Edmondson, who played Vivian.
Yep.
And together they played the Dangerous Brothers. But just absolutely anarchic TV, and then went on to do the Bottom series as well, both his TV shows and his stage shows, and brought slapstick comedy to a whole new level. But,
and Adrian is married to Jennifer Saunders.
Yes,
another very big icon of British comedy.
Yeah,
she did Ab Fab and many other things.
Yeah, so all of those. I mean, it's absolutely right. All of those folks, they all went through the same. They must have been, I can't say they're all at the same university together, but they're all at university at the same time, and then they were drawn to the alternative comedy circuit in England in the early 80s, which was kind of the punk rock version of comedy, really. It was a revolt against everything else that had happened before.
Yeah.
We can't do comedy in this staid, tired fashion as it's been done. We're going to change it. We're going to, it's a whole new world of comedy. And they all went on to much bigger and better. And now, of course, Stephen Fry, who's so well known for so many things, not least of which are, the narrator of the Harry Potter books in England.
Okay.
Has just become this tremendous national treasure, and his comedy partner, you may know, is Hugh Laurie from House.
Hugh, yeah. You see him much more in serious roles and stuff, but I love his acting.
So when they started out, they were all in Footlights, Cambridge together, or from that Oxbridge. Not all of them, but certainly Stephen Fry and Hugh Laurie is a case. And yeah, Hugh Laurie's gone on to great things with House and beyond, and Stephen Fry has now become this sort of wonderful figure of TV, but most especially radio. He's sort of taken over control of Radio 4 in England, and when Stephen Fry talks, everybody listens. But just incredible to think that they all started from this very small, humble beginnings of an alternative comedy club down in London that was originally, it was a strip club. And it used to, let's say it was 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock in the morning in weekdays. I think it was weekdays. They closed down and opened it up as a comedy club, in the middle of Soho in London.
For something completely different.
And away they go, and they've now become these great stars of stage and screen.
Yeah, in the U.S., obviously Saturday Night Live has produced a number of, major comedy actors and actresses. The Groundlings out in L.A., and it's been quite some time, but look at all those that came out of SCTV. Eugene Levy, Catherine O'Hara, John Candy. There's just so many that came out of that group that was just still doing great stuff.
Yes, I think what you're describing here with all of those characters is the same thing but different than what was happening in England at the same time.
Yeah.
Sort of a group that were feeding off each other,
exactly.
Sort of creatively feeding off each other. That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, they make each other better.
Make each other better is exactly right, and support one another. And funny enough, I was watching the Blues Brothers the other day, and that little clip of John Candy, who's playing the cop trying to arrest them, and he's sitting at the table and he orders orange whips. Just I don't know what it is about that little scene. Orange whip, 3 orange whips.
Yeah, it's hard to believe he's been gone over 25 years now. I think it was somewhere around 94 we lost him. But I know right now Eugene Levy and Catherine O'Hara are both starring in Schitt's Creek, and it's very popular. So
yes. I think the last film I can remember John Candy being in would have been Uncle Buck. I can't say that was his last movie. That's
No, I don't think it was, but it remains one of my absolute favorites that he ever did, without a doubt.
Uncle Buck?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not a huge Macaulay Culkin fan, but I think he had his best lines in that movie. I think he was at his best in that movie. It was before Home Alone, and it was just, he did a really, really fun job in that one.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great characters. It's a tragedy when these folks have to leave us and leave us too soon. It's always too soon, but when that happens, it really is. Yeah. What other great British, English-stroke British TV shows made it over to the States?
Oh, what came over after that? I'm sure now we're starting to see with all the your Netflix and all the Hulu and all that. You're starting to see a lot of great stuff.
I think
coming out of there.
Perhaps one of the most popular, fairly recent exports is The Office, isn't it? At least the idea of The Office.
Yeah, it started off as Gervais's show, and then 2000, somewhere around 2004, I think is when they brought the American one. I still remember vividly seeing the pilot episode of the U.S. one, and thinking this show is brilliant, but it's not going to make it. But the audiences picked up on it, and it carried through.
Yes, it was one of those shows. You're right. Some shows, when they're remade, they just flop instantly. Like it's instantly, you need that character, the lead character. You need whatever it is that makes that show particularly successful. You're right, but yes, the US version of The Office just absolutely nailed it. Mm-hmm. It worked just as well in the States as it did in England.
Well, I think shortly after the success of The Office in the US, they tried to bring over Coupling, and Coupling was only 4 seasons in the UK.
Okay,
and they tried it here.
Didn't work,
and it didn't work at all.
Yeah.
I don't even know if it lasted 6 episodes, maybe. I'm not sure, but it just did not work at all. But I know they were trying to piggyback, I'm sure, that success off of The Office. But you gotta give it a try sometimes, and sometimes it hits, sometimes it doesn't.
Sometimes it hits, and sometimes it doesn't. Yeah, that's right.
Well, that's very interesting. Discussing what shows were popular when you were little, and
yeah, I mean, we had such fun watching American TV. I mean, I just used to love all those shows, but particularly, MASH, for example. That used to be on. It used to be 9 o'clock at night. Used to be allowed to stay up and watch it. And probably really shouldn't have done, but just terrific. Now when you look back, a lot of those shows you look back and think, wow, just like we talked about Star Trek, you look at them and think, well, a lot of the scripts were hit and miss, but boy, they've stood the test of time nevertheless.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, MASH has, definitely. Of course, Friends was a huge hit over in England.
Oh, really?
Huge hit around the whole world, I think.
Yeah, it was, of course, really big here, and of course, it's syndication everywhere. It's on all the time here. So that's definitely one that is now, 25 years later, too, since that one started.
And you mentioned earlier on Monty Python, and the films were being made in the 70s. But I tell you, unless I'm mistaken, it's only fairly recently where you started to see reruns of the movies, Python movies, on TV. I mean, for many years they were just never shown.
Maybe so. I think the last time IFC showed them, the Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Within the past few months, I caught that. Was on. I'm like, oh, I popped on it for a little while. For a long time they were just a big kind of cult college thing.
Right.
The local right. the university group that shows the entertainment would show a classic Monty Python, or they'd show Clockwork Orange or something along those lines, cult movies and stuff like that.
I got to say, when Monty Python and the Holy Grail was released in England, it changed my life. I mean, it was a bit like talking about The Young Ones, an alternative comedy, but when the Holy Grail was released in England, I remember I took the day off school, shouldn't have done, but had to go and see it on opening day, on the Thursday, in Loughborough, the little town close to where I lived. And so sneaked away from school, caught the bus into Loughborough to watch watch Monty Python and the Holy Grail. And it was like, I want to say it was 1 o'clock in the afternoon. There was hardly anybody in there. There's about, let's say there were 6 people in, but my core memory of watching that movie for the first time is all 6 of us kind of just sat together in the same,
bonded by the experience.
Little group there, and just loved it. Just from the opening credits, the strange quirkiness of the opening credits, until the strange quirkiness of the close, when the policeman just puts his hand in front of the camera and the film runs off its runners, and just a life-changing experience. And yeah.
I wish I'd seen it on the big screen. You got a very special treat there. I remember it to this very day. I can remember walking out of that cinema, and just thinking, the world can never be the same again. Like, movie making can never be the same again after that. All of it. I mean, just the lines, the comedic lines, and the settings, and the fact, all the mist and the castles where they were filming, and the fact that there were no horses because they couldn't afford horses, and so they were using coconut shells, and writing that into the script, the appreciation of writing that into the script. And I mean, of everything that Monty Python have done, and I'll quite happily sit through almost everything they've done, but that one particular moment to me was just head and shoulders above everything else they've ever done. I was so pleased they did that. Very good, very good. I can say that'd be amazing to see some of the classics on the big screen. We just won't hardly get that chance anymore.
Putting movies, you're absolutely right, Kevin. Putting classic movies on the big screen, to me, just seems like such a no-brainer. I've been banging on to myself about this for years. Like, you go to the cinema, and every cinema, wherever you live in the world, in the same town, they're all showing the same 6 or 8 movies. You can see them here, you can see them there, you can see them over there, but they're all the same. If you just had like one screen would dedicate itself to showing classic movies.
Yeah, Yeah, you think you could almost create a theater that's kind of dedicated.
Yes.
And
should I ever win the lottery, that would be one thing I would open.
Whether anybody comes or not, I'm going to have these showing.
Yes.
They're going to be playing whether you're there or not.
That's exactly right. Yes.
Well, of course, back in the day before even videotapes and stuff like that, that was your only chance to see a movie again. It's
Absolutely.
coming back as a limited engagement. See The Godfather again. See Star Wars again.
Yes.
And that was a very specific way of getting to relive something or take somebody that hadn't seen it before, because that was your chance.
Now, I must say that a few cinemas have started to show, rescreen old movies. It's not so long ago.
True, or they'll have like a theme, like summer they'll do a beach theme. They'll do beach movies or something for a week, or horror movies. They'll do a horror week at Halloween or something like that.
I had the opportunity to see Some Like It Hot on the big screen for the first time, and that again to me, it's just that movie. There's just something about it which is just spot on.
Well, I think it's always consistently ranked. I'm sure everybody has different opinions, but I think it's usually ranked as the #1 comedy of all cinema. When everybody does their list, or the AFI list is probably, I think it is considered #1.
And yet, when you try and pin these things down, like what made this movie the classic movie it is, it's very difficult to actually say, well, it's because of this or that. It just happens.
Exactly.
It's a bit like Casablanca.
You have the tiger by the tail until years later prove that.
What I read and see about Casablanca is just so many things could have gone wrong with that movie. It was never going to be made, then it was going to be made, and this happened, and that happened. But thank goodness it did, because there is another absolute classic, And to see these movies on the TV is one thing. To see them via DVD is another thing. But to actually get the experience to sit in the cinema when the lights go down and they come on the silver screen, it's just, If there's one thing I could do to help the wider world, should ever I have the money to do it, it would be to open a cinema dedicated to classic movies. Yeah,
oh, very good.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I hope everyone finds some time to maybe go out and find enjoyment in one of their favorite movies at some point.
I hope so.
That'd be a good way to send us off.
Well, we better wrap up this episode, hadn't we? It's absolutely pitch dark out here now. Can't see any. Other than the lights on the other side. Are you still here? The lights on the other side of the lake we can see, but other than that, there is no light whatsoever. Well, okay, let's sign off. Thanks for joining us, and we hope you'll come back and join us for episode 3.
Absolutely.
Say bye-bye, Kevin.
Bye-bye, Kevin.
Bye.